what does cash flow mean to you as a business?
Well, cash flow is nothing more than the total amount of money being transferred in and out of a business. But in the context of the way we look at it, we've always, especially being in real estate, we've always looked at it as positive cash flow. And that's taking in more cash than you're spending. In other words, if you take in $400 today and you spend $500 today, you have a cash flow of $900, but you have a negative cash flow of $100. So, you're looking for that, always that positive cash flow is the way that we measure things. That's the only thing we're interested in when we're helping our clients, is creating that positive cash flow consistently. And, positive cash flow will keep your doors open long after profitability will, right? Amazon is a heck of an example. Where'd they go 20 some years without making a profit, but they were a cash cow. So positive cash flow, gives you that financial cushion, that confidence to implement changes and make your business worth owning. We know that the majority of small businesses fail within 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think it was U.S. Bank conducted a study and discovered a number of reasons for this, but the primary reason, and I think it was at 82% of the time, poor cash flow management or poor understanding of cash flow contributed to the failure of a business. So that old saying, cash is king, that's, you want to focus on cash flow. You have to have positive cash flow all the time.
So I think a lot of people get confused between cash flow and profit. So what's the difference?
Well, profit is the revenue remaining after deducting all the costs associated with operating the business. While cash flow is the amount of money flowing in and out of a business at any given time, whereas we just talked about positive cash flow is, taking in more cash than you're putting out the door.
So you have a really good saying, and I really like how you put this. You can be very profitable, but still go out of business.
Yep.
So can you just explain that? Like, what does that mean to you when you say that?
Well, again, some of the people we've talked to, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're making money, but at the end of the year, they've got nothing left in the checkbook, and they've had to go and borrow money to pay, the last quarter's taxes or the last quarter payroll, whatever it is, and they can't quite figure it out. Well, it's because most people are geared for revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's even like when I was in the car business, I really didn't care about revenue. I cared about gross profit, but cash flow comes out of that gross profit more or less. So yeah, successful businesses do two things. One, they make money, they make a profit, and they generate cash. Those are the two things you've got to be working towards: is making a profit and generating positive cash flow. Yeah, and you're right. You can make a profit and still go out of business because you have negative cash flow. So and that's kind of the reason that most businesses fail within the 5 years, is they may be profitable, but they're spending more than they're taking in.
Mm-hmm. So most people, they think of when they need to make more money, think of, I need to sell. I just need to get more revenue.
Yeah.
How do you view that when somebody comes to us and says that? What should they be doing differently before they ever get to that? Hey, let's just get more customers in the door.
Yeah.
What should they do first?
Well, again, being 80-20 guys, we know very well, only 20% of your inventory, only 20% of your customers are generating profit and probably by consequence generating your cash flow. 80% of what you do, 80% of what you sell, 80% of what you inventory. And it's not an exact science, but the point is, the vast majority of what you sell, the vast majority of what you inventory, the vast majority of your customers are a waste of your time, and effort. But before before we even start to say, well, let's focus on marketing and let's start helping you sell more, let's look at some certain things. I mean, some of the basic factors to look at is, track and categorize your expenses. You need to know exactly what you're spending and where you're spending it. Have a benchmark. Most businesses either have an association or you can pretty easily find out, what other businesses within your market or industry have for, a cash flow balance, as so to speak, and then manage your spending. Most businesses way overspend, right? I mean, we've walked into a lot of places, and I think what's happened during this COVID is a really good example. We've talked to a number of people who now said, I've come to realize I can make almost as much money without any of the headache, without nearly as many employees, without all the products and inventory that I used to have, and I don't need this piece of real estate.
Yeah.
They're beginning to realize you don't need to just sell. You need to focus on the 20% that generates 80%.
Right. Yeah, it's more about focusing, figuring out. I would say the difference is maybe people are starting to wake up to that they can figure out who their top people, top services, top products are that they should be really, what they should really be doing. What's that top 5% of things they should be doing, whether that's the customers they should have or the products or the services, and focusing on that rather than saying it's just a shotgun approach, right? It's rifle shot versus shotgun.
Yeah. When we first started this, I still remember one of the first people I went in and talked to him, and about 820, and we gave him, I gave him our book, Marketing Strategy Simplified, and he was paging through it, and he says, "Yeah, I really agree with this," and I don't remember what it was. So I started talking about the 80-20. He was asking me about that, and I said, "Well, I can tell you right now that the vast majority of your customers are wasting your time." "Oh, no. He says, "Everybody's my market. Everybody is my customer."
Yeah.
Well, we didn't go too much farther in that conversation because there's that old saying, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. It's not true. We know that. I mean, when you stop and think about it, we know it very well. You can make a lot more money with a lot less effort, I don't want to say fewer customers, but the better customers. Everybody has ideal top clients, and that is one of the things we always focus on, is figuring out who are your top clients, and the other thing is are your 20% of your products that you sell that are actually making money, and you, excuse the French, but shit can the rest. You just don't need it.
So what are some ways someone can increase their cash flow? Just some easy things.
Yeah, well, there are numerous ways. We've got, when we sit down with somebody, we've got 9 things we can help them with, or at least make them aware of. But really, we focus on 2 things: expenses and inventory. Categorizing, helping them to categorize their expenses. When you know who your ideal top customers are, and you're right, it really is almost in all cases, it's the top 5%. You profile them, and then you start generating your marketing, messages, your expenses, your employees, everything starts being geared towards who is that ideal top 5%. You profile them, you start looking to duplicate those, but also you start looking at your expenses and say, what are the expenses that are not generating revenue, that are not serving this ideal top customer, and you seriously consider getting rid of those expenses. When it's put down on a spreadsheet like we do, I mean, it becomes very obvious to everybody. They look at it and say, why have I got this person, or why am I spending money here that is catering to this 80% or 95% that I'm not making any money on? Makes no sense. Let's go out, figure out who these 5% are, and let's start duplicating them and make that pie bigger. and get rid of these expenses that aren't generating revenue. Then the second thing is, like I said, inventory. Stock and sell only what your top clients. And I always, we always use this thing, the 20%.
Yeah.
Stock and sell only what your top 20% are buying. Inventory only what your clients buy and what turns quickly. A way that I used to teach my sales managers this, in my car dealership, and this is kind of an abbreviated way to explain it, but let's say you own a bunch of soda vending machines with 10 rows of different flavors in each row, and you go in and you fill them up every week. And at the end of week 1, rows 1 and 2 completely sold out. Rows 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are partially full. You've sold a few. Rows 9 and 10 still full. They had no sales. So you replace rows 9 and 10 with one of the flavors from rows 1 and 2. You go back the next week, you discover rows 1, 2, 9, and 10 are now completely sold out. You continue with this tracking in sequence until all the rows are filled with those 1, 2, or maybe 3 flavors that sell, and every week, and they sell out. All of a sudden, you've got 10 rows filled with 2 or 3 flavors, and you're filling them every week. That's the same way I wanted them to look at my car inventory.
Right.
If it isn't selling in the car business, I wanted it gone in 30 days. If it isn't selling in 30 days, look at particular price ranges, colors, make, model, type, category of car. That was a little bit more complicated, but this is a simplified way of getting them to understand, and any business owner to understand, stock and sell only what sells quickly. Not something that you've got in stock for 3 years. We had this one restaurant that we we did this for, right? They had a wine inventory of I know it was $16,000 and I don't know how many bottles. And so when we inventoried and we started tracking it, they had wine bottles there for 3 years. Well, very, very easily they began to see, what kind of wine, what price wine starts to sell. We were able to get that 16,000 down to, well, initially down to 7,000, but I think they brought it back up to 9 or 10. But in essence, that generated $6,000 to $8,000 of extra cash a month that they didn't have to spend on inventory, and it turned. It turned very fast.
Right.
Yeah. And that's cash flow. That's how you get cash flow.
Right.
So that's cash flow. Cash is king. That's the one thing everybody has to understand about cash. It is king. Everything you do has to be towards generating that positive cash flow. And our method, based on the 80-20 principle, is, I don't want to say foolproof, but it's as dang close to foolproof as you can get.
Right. So that probably wraps it up for this time. We have a free expense chopper worksheet PDF that we'll put the description of the link in the comments below. You can go ahead and grab that. It'll help you control your expenses, help you with income ideas, and your cash runway. So I'll leave a link in the description below wherever you're seeing this. But until next time, see you then.